अरे राइटर्स को ऐसे ही होता, राइटर्स को कोई नहीं पूछता, राइटर्स का चेहरा किसी को नहीं पता, राइटर को कोई नहीं पूछता. That should not be the conversation. All sort of dark forces take over if I'm not writing. So I just feel that writing keeps me sane. We don't have time to bounce off our ideas actually. We're constantly bickering because we are basically always arguing about the idea before we even start the idea. I don't think I've got such an instant connect in any of my films before than I got for Hasseen Dillruba from the grassroots audience.
Can really take a lot of time.
There's no time.
There's no time.
वो कभी भी आगे बोलता है चलो खोलो बस हो गया. You are the BTS star here. Thank you. Hi, I'm Kanika Dhillon and you're watching me on midday.com.
Hello everybody, welcome to midday.com. On this episode of BTS Stars, we have writer-producer Kanika Dhillon, who's been the woman behind films like Manmarziyaan, Rashmi Rocket, Judgmental Hai Kya, Hasseen Dillruba and now Fir I Hasseen Dillruba. Let's start from the beginning, maybe how you from a novelist, were you writing scripts first or were you writing books first?
I was writing books first.
Okay.
I am an author who's turned into a screenplay writer. So in fact, I started out as an assistant director and the idea always was to write films and to make films. And I think I penned my first novel as an author while I was an AD on Om Shanti Om.
Oh wow.
And junior most intern on the set. And as Om Shanti Om came out, I'd finished my first novel. And of course, that was about ADs and their lives. And it, with God's grace, it was a bestseller, a breakout success. So it was quite fun writing that. And since I've grown up reading a lot of novels, authors, my mother is a professor for English literature. So stories have always been a part of our everyday culture, diet, authors, literature. And from the very beginning, as far as I can remember, writing and authoring books, writing films was something that I was gravitating towards.
What did you study
as soon as So I did history and philosophy. And then I did global communications from London School of Economics. But while I was in Stephens and then everybody was there preparing for, actually in Stephens the whole idea was to prepare for the civil services.
Yes.
So everybody was choosing subjects, okay, mains ke liye history, philosophy, those kind of combinations one would choose. Because then the whole idea was to go prep, sit for the IAS exams. But somewhere in between, I think my mind was always into writing and movies and this, that and the other. But of course the parents said that, education is very important, which it is. And being a good student, graduating from very premium institutions was something that was very important to have a plan B, because I come from a family which has nothing to do with films, nothing to do with stories. By the time when we were making these life decisions as to what should we do next, it was not so popular to choose these careers of a writer. Usually that time it was like, writer, who's going to pay your rent? So wanting to be a writer was a luxury, literally, like a hobby. It can't be a main profession. Yeah. So hence I had to always had a plan B. And my plan B was then graduating from Stephens, and I went to St. Xavier's in Mumbai, then I went to London School of Economics, and I'm like, oh my God, my plan B is so super strong. And eventually I think my parents were hoping that while she's doing her plan B, she'll forget the plan A, but it didn't happen. And then I started out here, and of course the love for writing stories was always there. And while I was on the sets of a film, I was writing as well, and I authored my first novel, and then I wrote 2 more. And by the time Dance of Durga was the last one, which was with HarperCollins. Yes. And after that, the screenplay writing took precedence because Manmarziyaan came out, and then things got busier.
Was Manmarziyaan the first script that you actually wrote? Or
Manmarziyaan was the first script that I actually wrote independently. Okay. I've not taken a formal education from, I've not been to a film school.
Right.
So everything that I've learned is very hands-on since I've started as an intern. So everything to do with every department in filmmaking, I've, learned and worked in and understood, because I loved the process of making films.
Was Red Chillies that learning?
Yeah, so Red Chillies was like my university. I've learned a lot about filmmaking from there in every department: prep, actual shooting, post. and it's held me in good stead now that I'm a producer. I keep telling my team and the kids, I said, where you are, I've been there. So you can't bullshit me because I've been there. So they all laugh about it. So yes, my entire training is very ground up. So, and I'm very happy that I did all of that. It helped me understand the medium I was writing for much better. And yeah, Manmarziyaan was my first independently written script as a professional writer, which gave me a voice, a paycheck, and a career. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your process, in the sense, at this point, say for example, somebody who does not know how scripting happens. How does the story become a script, and I don't know, then it becomes a screenplay? What is that whole process like?
Writing a screenplay is a very personal sort of a process that an individual has to crack himself. You need to know the basic theories and fundas that are out there, which have been, which they teach you theoretically and as, first act, second act, third act, etc. But to find your own process is very important. So when I started out, it was very chaotic. Usually, one looks up to other writers who are established, and then you try and find out कि आप कैसे करते हो, you know what I mean? So because when I was there struggling, we didn't have any sort of a professional training ground to be a writer. So in fact, I would ask also people कि कैसे मिलते हैं लोगों को ऐसे professional assignments? So then ऐसे आप किसी को जानते हो, किसी को जानते हो, मैंने कहा जानते हो मतलब अभी मैं तो नहीं आई हूँ यहाँ पे, मैं जानती नहीं हूँ किसी को, तो कैसे बना जाएगा writer? So no, then they say you work in a certain environment and people will spot you, they'll figure you can write, you keep pitching your work. It's quite a tough, unorganized sector, come to think of it. I'm talking about back then still, like for example, now that I've turned producer, the first thing I did was I set up a very professional writer's room saying all the new kids who have talent, who want to write, you're welcome and we will tell you how to go about it. So I don't know, at least Katha's doing that. But of course, I'm sure when there's a newcomer who's probably had an education, maybe from a Whistling Woods or some writing institution, it's still, you have to pitch because there are so many people out there who are trying their luck. So the success rate, unfortunately, is quite cute. But at least I think it is a little better because, say for a Katha, I'm sure there are other producers who are sending out, with social media, it's become very much better. You can send in your scripts, there's a proper process. SW has become very strong. They're doing some fantastic work for writers. In fact, I just attended a meeting last week and Anjum Rajabali and team have done some stellar work for the writing community and I must congratulate them. I think things are really, really much better than they were back then. And I also feel that our tribe, we should be now responsible because we, with God's grace, have a platform and we can have a say in hiring and making policies and we are at the decision-making table. So there is a lot of responsibility.
Kanika, usually writers are supposed to be in the background. They do the writing and then it's done. Half the time we don't even know what they look like. But you've been one person who's always pushed through in terms of visibility, in terms of giving a voice to the profession per se, as a woman as well. Was it always the intention, or is it a conscious effort to be, more out there, to speak up so that people understand the, maybe the struggles or the problems?
So what happened is, there was this line I read while I was, struggling as a writer. In the background, as writers, we go through a lot of heartache, when we're in the struggling phase. And I'm sure it is, we get so attached to stories, the work gets rejected. Sometimes, the work gets picked up, you don't get recognition for it. There's a lot of heartbreak, even though the systems are much more organized right now, but the heartache will continue because it's a very creative process. You're so attached to it. So there is a lot of frustration, there is a lot of heartache that one has to go through. That's the process, I guess. And then I read a line that, being faceless for a writer should be a choice, not a necessity. So that really struck home that, for any and every writer who's working, be it an author or be it a screenplay writer, it should not be a mandatory thing that authors or writers are faceless. It should not be a mandate. Yeah. It should be your choice. Yes. You want to not come forward or not, lend your face to that writing. It is your choice. But it's not that writers को ऐसे ही होता, writers को कोई नहीं पूछता, writers का चेहरा किसी को नहीं पता, writer को कोई नहीं पूछता. That should not be the conversation. So that really struck home, and very early on, I decided that I made that choice that no, I do not want to be lost. I want to have a voice and I want to have a face. And I also feel that being a woman, more important for me to come out there to have a face to this voice, because of course the journey is a little more tough. You have to maneuver a lot of situations, this, that and the other, and it always helps to know that this is a strong voice, this is a known face, and we can't really mess around.
Right.
So I think it was a bit of a defense mechanism also, and it was also a conscious decision to come out and to be out there and to have a face to this voice.
Also, you're known for your, I don't know if I could say brand of cinema, in the sense the stories that you write, especially the female characters that you create. Again, was that conscious, or has it been difficult to find people who would back those kind of stories?
I mean, you've seen my body of work.
Yes.
I've consistently been working, and I've worked with the best artists in the industry
Yes.
right now, be it Kangana, be it Taapsee, be it Kiara, Sara Ali Khan. She started her career with Kedarnath.
Yes.
Taapsee's done Rumi, Rashmi Rocket, multiple things.
4 films now with you?
4 films, 5 films.
5 films.
Then Kangana and Bobby. So these are all, artists who are at the top of their game, and they respond to good stories and good characters, thankfully. And I have not really had a problem either casting a film or setting up a film. Being known for my brand of cinema, well, as an artist, I'm very happy, because that means it's a distinct voice. It's a voice that makes you think.
Yes.
You remember my characters, you remember my stories, and there is an appetite for more. And what more can an artist ask for?
Right.
If my voice and my art has made an identity of its own, if my art has a niche of its own, a color of its own, as an artist, my soul is very happy.
What prompted the decision to turn producer?
Again, it was twofold. It was me pushing back as a writer as well, because even after a lot of body of work, the industry is very skewed against the writers, unfortunately. Even today, when I say, with their amazing organizations that are fighting for rights, like SW is doing some stellar work, but the contracts are entirely skewed. More than that, it's also, recently it's become a phenomena that, the writers are really encouraged to come on the set, because it's a very, very collaborative process. Writer and director together make a film, because a writer imagines a world and then hands it over to the director. So if they come together, join forces, I think the film that comes out is a much superior film. So I understood early on that either I should be a writer-director, which means that there is no loss of translation, there is
Between
no
the writing.
going out there and casting a director and this, that and the other. Or then I better be in a position where I can be a stakeholder in the storytelling. So it was, I think, sheer love for my stories that I turned producer. And also the fact that, it really hurts when, because of other people making certain decisions, the film gets compromised. Ideally, a writer should get that responsibility or that say in creative decision making, but that's not the case here. So, like I said, it's also a way of pushing back that, okay, let me just produce my films, because from Manmarziyaan onwards, like I was a creative producer on Manmarziyaan. I was with Anurag throughout the film. After writing it, and I was on the table of the decision-making table, sitting there with everyone, and that experience really confirmed my idea of being absolutely involved at the ground level in the filmmaking process of the films that I write.
Does that not happen with all the projects that you're part of?
And after Manmarziyaan, I was so that is a conscious decision I took from Manmarziyaan time. Right. So the loss of translation is less, because see, I've also worked as an AD, as an intern. I've seen how the relationship between the writers. So I was prepared. I knew how skewed it is. I was not a babe in the woods who didn't know how the industry functions. So when Manmarziyaan happened, it was a decision from the work I'd already done. I understood that there is a gap here. So I wanted to fill that gap already with my first film, because I was very committed that this film has to be told a certain way. And it should not be lost in translation. It should not land in a way that it's not intended to. Because Manmarziyaan was a very delicate film about relationships. And every film, so on and so forth, has a certain sort of telling, this, that and the other. I feel now, in fact, the directors are very collaborative. And touchwood, all my directors have been very collaborative, be it Gattu in Kedarnath, be it Anurag, Manmarziyaan, be it all the other films that I've done. Up till now, Hasseen Dillruba, I'm the co-producer on the film as well. So it's been a very good, wholesome journey. But I like to be very involved in the telling of my stories as a maker, just not as a writer. And that gives me like immense satisfaction as a creator to start the process and then see it through entirely till the end.
So direction is not something that's too far away for you then?
You know, like I said, never say never. I will direct, I think, eventually. But right now, my son is very small, and I want to be able to spend enough time with him because, you know, once you commit to direct, you need to be there at sunrise on the set, leading the ship. And that kind of commitment I can't make. I can't run a set right now because I have a very small baby. But I can produce 5 films and write them with my baby. So it's a decision that eventually I think I will come to. But right now I'm just enjoying my journey as a producer so much because I'm writing and producing that I'm having a lot of fun right now as a creator.
How much time do you spend writing in a day at the desk?
See, basically, I've been writing since my teenage days. So I'm a compulsive, people are alcoholics. I'm a compulsive writer. I think my day is not complete if I've not written something or creatively kind of thought about a scene or something like that. So my life is very incomplete if I don't write. For me, it's a therapy, it's addiction, it's a joy. So I really can't quantify. There are days when I'm, writing for me not necessarily is sitting and typing. It's also thinking, ideating, daydreaming, changing scenarios. I actually think that I write 24 hours a day. I'm constantly thinking, constantly ideas are striking. I'm constantly putting things together. So I am a work in progress sort of a writer 24/7.
Wow.
And I just thrive in it. I really enjoy it because I genuinely feel that if I was not writing, I would be a criminal. Because, you know, your mind is like so, your mind can really be, actually another writer told, I don't remember, somebody very smartly said, you know, people who write pulp, crime, capers, if they were not writing that, they would be criminals. And I'm like, I agree with you because sometimes I think that if I was not writing, I would be a criminal because your mind is going in so many different directions and you have such an outlet for that. And also, I genuinely feel like if I don't write enough, I get depressed. I get, you know, all sort of dark forces take over if I'm not writing. So I just feel that writing keeps me sane. So sometimes people ask me, you're a producer, I mean, you turn director. So I say, I'm never going to stop writing. You know, it's an extension of me. So I love writing, and I know there's a lot of, there's a journalist who came to me and said, Kanika, I must say that all friends that I've met who are writers, they're angry also at you, that you write at this speed, they're angry. And then they're also like very happy that when your films come out, you know, it's just like, they celebrate.
Yes.
So there's this,
Sure.
There's this
love-hate
thing directed at you. Firstly, how are you writing so fast? And then how are you making it so... I said, listen, it's a problem, which I love. It's an addiction. I can't exist without writing.
There's no writer's block.
There is no, I guess there's no writer's block. Like, I don't think I've taken a vacation like ever.
Wow.
I think I'm always working. Yeah. Even during my pregnancy, I was cracking scripts. I had my baby. I started my production house. I'm a workaholic. I don't like to sleep too much. So yeah, I think I have issues. Yes, it's safe to say.
No, but good. That makes for like great cinema, which is amazing. But tell me, who are the filmmakers or writers that you look up to, or the kind of cinema you've been inspired by? Indian or foreign?
Listen, I was just blown away by this film called Parasite. Okay. And you know, I also can get obsessive about my devotion with an artist, with a film. Suddenly I feel that this is the only director in the world who knows how to make cinema. I'll forget about everybody else. So I have these very intense, acute, devotional phases. And when I saw Parasite, I was just blown away by the entire narrative, which was so entertaining, but it hit you in the gut.
Yeah.
You know, the class conflict, the emotional, arcs, the interpersonal relationships. It was just outstanding. It was woven like a piece of art, and I've not gotten over it. And I went back and I saw the entire work of this director, and I was just like, he's the man. only he knows how to make cinema. So, like I said, it's in phases, and yeah. Otherwise, I think a lot of my contemporaries are really talented. I think Jaideep Sahni is a great writer. I think my husband is outstanding.
Sure.
I think that's why we kind of,
The two
were
brains get
attracted to
together,
each
yes.
other, because I really, really enjoy how his devious mind works. And, I think he's a fantastic screenplay writer who's constantly, I like the way he's pushing the envelope with his narratives. Jaideep and Himanshu are two screenplay writers that I really kind of enjoy their work, and I hope Jaideep writes more stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember when Himanshu's Tanuweds Manu came out, I went and looked it up on Google. I'm like, oh my god, who's this writer? So that I think is fantastic, because that time I didn't even know who Himanshu was.
Right.
Tanuweds Manu 1, Tanuweds Manu 2, Ranjana.
Yes.
So every time I've gone, I'm like, oh my god, it's the same writer. So I thought that
You didn't know each other then?
No, Tanuweds Manu 1, I didn't know him. And then Ranjana and Tanuweds Manu 2, of course I knew, but I would want to know more about his. And then by the time, of course, we'd met, and I was in the vicinity of, we were meeting and all of that. But I've always admired his craft a lot, because he has this sort of chaos and he has this sort of angst in his scenes, in his stories, laced with a huge dollop of humor, which is great. And now I get to see that every day.
Do you guys bounce off ideas?
We are constantly, mostly, bounce of ideas is when we have time. We don't have time to bounce off our ideas, actually. We are constantly bickering, because we are basically always arguing about the idea before we even start the idea. So our friends were going to tell us, you should actually keep cameras here. It's a sitcom to watch both of you. Because both of us like to have the last word. So and then if he's saying something funny, I have to say something funnier. So it's just like, it's a constant. And now our baby's in the mix, who's also quite there, and he also likes to have he also likes to come in the conversation. So it's quite a verbose household.
A lot of the brickbats are also directed at the writer. If things don't go well, people say, oh, script अच्छी नहीं थी, या फिर ये थोड़ा ढीला पड़ गया. Those kind of. Do you read your reviews? The reviews that you get?
Whatever I can, see, people make sure that they tag you, and now it's of course you'll read it. I whatever I can get my hands on, whatever comes my way, I definitely read. Whatever doesn't come my way, I don't. It's not that I'm hunting for it, but I definitely try and read as much as I can, because it's very important as an artist to be on your toes all the time. So I think reviews and criticism is something that keeps you on your toes and keeps you fresh and agile, because if the day you start feeling too confident and that nervousness goes away, that's the day I think when your craft will start diminishing. So it's very important to keep that the butterflies in the stomach should never go. I feel as an artist, when the work is out there, you have to have that little bit, because critics are also audience at the end of the day, So of course they have a different lens or a perspective, but I like to know which lens are you seeing it from and what are you feeling about it. Right. I may not agree with it, I may disagree with it, but I definitely like to know. And it's very, very important also to kind of read something that you may disagree with, because it kind of somewhere or the other gives you an additional perspective, which as an artist, again, I'm very greedy for that. I'm very open to that.
Right.
And I also sometimes love arguing around that, because it kind of, it's a conversation, it's some sort of an engagement, which is important to kind of grow, I think.
Right. 5 films with Taapsee. It seems like you guys have a great bond and a great friendship going on. Did it start with Manmarziyaan?
It started with Manmarziyaan, and we both realized that we are both crazy. And I remember Manmarziyaan, we were shooting in Amritsar, and something really funny had happened. And it was so funny that while they were saying, move out of the frame, clear the frame or whatever, I was sitting on the road and laughing. Like I was laughing and I was crying, because it was something really mad was happening in my personal life, but in a funny way. And she came to me, she said, are you okay? I said, no, it's just so funny that I can't get up. I'm just laughing it out. She said, but you're crying. I said, no, this is not tears. I'm just laughing. And she's looking at me. She says, my God, you're just as crazy as I am. So she stood there. And then she also started laughing. I said, well, why are you laughing? She said, because you're laughing. Piche, the whole crew is like, what is going on? And we are having a little laughter-a-thon. And thereafter, we just, you just need, birds of a feather flock together kind of a thing. So we just have our own jokes. We have a lot of fun together actually. I like laughing a lot. I like being around people who are fun, who have a thick skin because I sometimes can say things that are totally politically incorrect and foot in mouth. So the other person has to be crazy enough to know, oh, that's what she means. So Taapsee is that person where I can just be like, whatever, and we can have a laugh about basically everything. Even if we are getting rogered, we can have a laugh about it. So I think that bond, that camaraderie, that comfort level translates into a lot of work because I'm a creature of habit. I love being comfortable. I love working with people that I feel a comfort level with. So I end up writing for them a lot. Like, for example, I loved my experience with Kriti in Dopatti. So I think she's a fantastic artist, and how she's portrayed the characters. I mean, I saw the rushes, and as a producer also, I felt so proud of the fact that, I'm such a brilliant artist who's performed this, and she's also my partner. Again, I'm like, oh my God, Kriti, I'm already thinking, okay, what do we have to, what should I write? What should we do together? So for me, comfort zone is very, very important. And then they turn into my muse, I think. That's my process, which I'm also discovering because my mind then goes to, Bhumi is a very dear friend. We hang out a lot. So whoever is in the vicinity, somehow you start seeing them in a different light. You start understanding it's a very natural thing. I don't do it deliberately, but you start understanding that, oh my God, if I push her to this, maybe she'll perform it like that. So you start looking at them as artists a little more closely. And I also write to an artist. Like, for example, I love to know who's playing this role. So, for example, even with Kriti or be it with Taapsee, I will just bounce off of one line and we'll like, okay, Taapsee to just puts it, I'm doing it. Yeah. So then I love writing to her strengths, and that's when I feel that magic happens. When there's a writer who's writing for an artist. Right. Because then when the final film comes, there is nobody else who could have played it. I love to know my artists, and then I love to push them. I love to give them something that makes them uncomfortable. I love to see them react in a situation they would never otherwise get to react in front of the camera. And sometimes, of course, because the kind of films I write, situations, you tend to think about them. So I love pushing my artists, and I love to know them, to be able to push them beyond a point. So I do gravitate towards people that I have a comfort zone with, which I am trying to now say that no, it has to be a wider thing. And but having said that, actually, I've worked with so many of, I've worked with a lot of people. Yes. Abhishek Bachchan is somebody that I absolutely love, and I can't wait to go back on the set with him. Oh. Rajkumar Rao is brilliant. Vikrant Massey is my favorite. He's magical. So, in fact, I met him again. I said, Vikrant, I have to see you on a set again quickly. It's like that. You make a bond, and then you want to kind of go and work with these people again. Right. So that's how it is.
So now we know how the magic happens, how you create such amazing characters. And it looks like the actor was just, or I don't know who's tailor-made for which the role or the actor, but that's how it happens. So that's brilliant. You've said in some interview that Rani Kashyap is probably the most difficult character you've ever created. Why so?
Like you said, Kanika, you have a brand of cinema. So what happens is now when my characters or my films are coming, one knows that the female protagonist is not just going to be an appendage. She's going to be a character. She's going to be taking decisions. She's going to be having an opinion. And sometimes what happens is you start then also binding them to always be right. Now, Rani Kashyap is not a righteous character. Rani Kashyap is a cheater. Rani Kashyap has misused her agency of choice. She has used somebody who really loves her. She has crossed all boundaries. That's one part of it. And then even when she's repenting, she has accepted abuse from a man. She has, gone to the other extreme of, okay, whatever punishment you want to give me, I will take it. Rani Kashyap is doing a lot of wrong things that I would not want women in real life to either idolize or emulate, imitate, or put that kind of behavior on a platform and a pedestal. So as an artist, for me, it's difficult because my protagonist is doing all of that. And yes, as an artist, is a conflict because I want my audience to love my protagonist. So I am telling you both the things at the same time. I'm telling you, love her, but don't like her or be like her. So walking that thin line is tough. For example, it was be it Mukku in Kedarnath, which Sara played.
Yes.
It's a straight character. She's outgoing. She has a mind of her own,
Right.
and she doesn't believe that religion should dictate her personal choices. Bobby, Kangana played in Judgmental Hai Kya. She had a fragmented reality, a broken mind, and how she saw a world in a certain way, and she was right eventually. Rashmi Rocket, an athlete, crosses all hurdles. All my heroines in that sense, Guilty, Kiara's character. In Guilty, of course, there was a little bit of a grey shade where she's the girlfriend who's trying to shield her boyfriend's crime in a way. Like as women, we as mothers, as girlfriends, as wives, we try to protect our men against allegations and all of that. So that is again, but she's the righteous one. Eventually, she does the right thing. We don't judge her in a certain way, but Rani was going to be judged, unlike all these other characters, because what Rani was doing was not correct. So, given those, we can't separate when we are viewing it, our ideals, our morality will come into play. So, knowing that, it was very difficult for me to get people to love her also, forgive her for what she's done, and know that what she's done is wrong, but I love the character. And my audience, thank God for that. It reached them.
Yeah.
And how?
Yeah.
So for me, that was a difficult one.
Right.
And yes,
Also,
I
because
took
do
a
you
chance.
think that when it comes to a male protagonist in the same situation, the audience is more forgiving because
You tell me about not just the audience, even the experts and the critics and the audience. Actually, audience was very good with Hasseen. Audience loved Hasseen. I have no complaint from the audience. I'm not even complaining about the critics. I'm just saying that they judged Rani more harshly than the men in the film, because nobody spoke about Neil's character who's cheating on the Bhabhi. So Bhabhi is the devil, but the Devar is not.
Yeah, that's what is
I'm
supposed to be
I'm
norm.
like, you should hit me for that also.
Yeah.
Na? That how are you making it's an illicit relationship,
Yeah.
and the Devas get being applauded. He's such wow, lovely, nice, what presence. And Taapsee is being shredded to pieces. The character, it's the work. It's in the public domain. You have every right to shred her, and you have every right to not shred him. That's your. We sign up for this. We sign up for opinions, and then we can't complain about it. But it is tricky, yes.
Yeah.
But I loved every bit of it. I loved creating the world of Dinesh Pandit. I loved creating each and every character of Hasseen Dillruba. And I loved the love that I got from the audience. I don't think I've got such an instant connect in any of my films before than I got for Hasseen Dillruba from the grassroots audience.
Right.
And that is very addictive.
Right.
That is very, very addictive.
Right. Would you call the industry progressive?
I would call it, of course, it's conflicted and progressive. Let me put it like that. Conflicted in its progression. It's trying to be progressive, like any other industry, let me say, or like,
Society at large, maybe.
Yeah, like society at large, because we are a micro set of a macro set, right? So, of course, all the traits and all the pain points of the society in general is also there in the industry. The only thing is that you're looking at them through a magnifying glass, and every mistake that you make is in the papers. That's the only difference. The whole world can get away with everything, but every failure is there in the papers. It's a headline. You read about it. Everybody reads about it. And every success is celebrated. It's also in the papers. So we as industry, as a whole, we are in a fishbowl literally with the whole world watching in. So everything is very heightened. So our frequency only of living life is already unreal in a way. So any sort of conflict, any sort of misstep, any sort of chaos feels so big and huge and magnified and unforgivable, whereas it's happening in the society at large. And I also feel, between the genders, for example, how do you kind of quantify what is a progressive society? One yardstick of it, perhaps, if we keep the class and the GDP and all of that aside, one yardstick is how you treat your women.
Yes.
What is their ratio in the workforce? So society at large, we know that the workforce, if you see the percentage of women in the workforce, is abysmally low, and same is reflected in the film industry.
Yes.
So we are trying to overcome that. I also feel, that at a personal level, we have a generation here now where the girls are well read, a certain section. Of course, we have many Indias and a large part of our country where we don't have certain facilities, we don't have education, we don't have privilege. Of course, they're fighting very different basic battles. But a certain section of urban society, the girls and the women have become much more empowered, and the men who mean well don't know how to deal with it. So it's a straight up flux. Sometimes I feel like we don't know how to deal with it. So it's equally a difficult phase for the men to come to terms with, but हमने तो बचपन से ऐसे ही देखा है, but okay, now we have to deal with it in a certain way. And for the women, of course, they are pushing ahead and they have to kind of be aggressive and they have to kind of assert themselves a little more. So, like I say, it's conflicted, it's in a state of chaos, but that's how progression happens.
Right.
No progression happens silently and without a conflict and without a chaos.
Commercially successful cinema is still very male-led. Would you agree? Do you
Yes.
see that change?
Again, there's a conflict here right now. The time we are sitting right here, earlier there was a mandate that a certain category of star is equal to a certain number of opening. Yes, it is male-led, but even now male-led is conflicted. Now, if you tell me that I have an A-lister and I'm telling you this is what the budget of the film will be and it is justified because he's going to bring in X amount of audience. The system was set, the business was set, but no, not anymore. Now, for the same big A-lister actor or star, how as a producer, now I'm conflicted. I'm like, what should I now decide the budget on? Because I know this is equal to, the audience is going to make up their mind on the trailer. And maybe even after the trailer, they're going to make up their mind, does the film have legs? So then what happens to the minimum guarantee of the star? Like I said, we are in conflict, we are in chaos. And now the other side of it is also maybe very beautiful, which is that the stories will maybe emerge as the real winner at the end of it. Maybe when we are anyway saying, as a producer, today I'm a producer and I'm feeling that, look, anyway there is no guarantee that if I go to the theatres with a male-led film, I'm going to get an audience, then I might as well go with a female-led film. I may just get an audience. So it's a very beautiful chaos. It's a very difficult time. We have to keep our heads down and work very hard, learn from a lot of mistakes probably that we may have made, and just move ahead.
Kanika, as I keep asking you questions, there's more that keep coming in my mind. Honestly, I think, as somebody who's watched and loved your work and getting a bit of an insight into how you think is also amazing. And maybe there could be a longer conversation or more questions for you at a later time. But thank you so much for doing this today.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.